So starting today, going over the agenda, we'll touch on a few topics. One of them being marketing. We'll touch on networking, on sales, how to price your artwork, and then how to be organized. So I will ask that if you have any questions, you can enter them in the chat. I have some members of my team here today to help me answer some of your questions, but I will make sure that I answer all your questions at the end. We'll certainly have a period of questions. And with that, let's get started. So the first thing we'll touch on is the marketing. And I like to say they say the dream without a plan is just a wish. And when it comes to your practice, it's really kind of comes into your having a strong marketing plan. If you want to have it, if you have a strong marketing plan, chances are that you're going to be consistent in sales. So you should see your marketing plan as a process of creating awareness, education, creating trust, and building connections with your target audience. So let's talk about building your target audience. You can't be everything to everyone. So you need to assess who are the people who would buy my work at the price I'm willing to sell it. How old are they? Where do they live? What type of content do they consume? What is my target market used to buying art online? And what would be their favorite way to interact with me? So once you establish once you've defined your target market, it's time to establish your artist brain. This is also called finding your voice. This is where you decide what your brain is very important to remember who your target audience is. Once you have decided your brain strategy, it's critical that you stay consistent. That will include the colors, the style, the type of content, and the frequency of content distribution. It's an important part of your brain is to have a persistent, professional online artist presence. This is a permanent digital destination where people can learn more about you, learn about your work, learn about your creation, your inspiration, learn about your CV, and they can easily contact you as well as learn about the work that you sold previously, as well as the work that you have currently available. This is one of the reasons that we built Imprimo. We built Imprimo to help artists create a persistent online presence that drives engagement with your audience. We built and continue to build many tools to help artists promote their work and document their career in an engaging way. Many artists have also chosen to use their own website where they can manage their persistence art online presence, but it's certainly a key component of your personal brand, your persistent professional online presence. Now, talking about marketing, we touched on content distribution. This is where you'll be posting different type of content related to your work. You need to, once you've defined your target audience and you built the branding guide, you built an online presence, you're then ready to start building an audience. The question remains, what is the best content? What is the best marketing distribution channel for you? Well, that will depend on your audience. Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook groups and page? Is it blogs, newsletters, or maybe it's virtual events like what we're doing tonight? Well, that will come down to who is your target audience. You should go meet your audience where they're at. If your audience is over 55, chances are they're probably still using platform like Facebook. If your audience is around 25, then TikTok might be a better choice than Facebook. So those are some type of things that you're going to want to consider once you've established who is your target market. It's also important to understand the algorithm that each of these distribution channel will have. What do I mean by algorithm? How often should you post? What type of content should you post on these channels? Is it photos? Is it videos? What is the best time of the day that you should post? That information can easily be found online, and it's quite important that you take the time to discover this. Otherwise, it can be quite challenging for your audience, even though they're following you, to even be seeing your content. Once you've found this information on what type of content should I post on what frequency, then you can start building as part of your marketing plan. We'll touch on Instagram. Instagram is certainly a very important part of many artists' marketing plan or their career. However, from what I've seen so far, many artists are making a lot of mistakes when using Instagram. They use Instagram as a sales catalog when really Instagram is made for connection. You can spend all day making a hashtag on Instagram, and that's not really going to give you what you want. Especially if you would rather spend some time in your studio creating work, right? So how do you know that you might have this problem? Your Instagram might be very salesy and not very social. You don't get a lot of comments on your posts, and you simply think that you just need more followers. Usually artists that have that problem think that they just need a bigger audience or they just need to learn to sell on Instagram. But the reality is that they think they have a promotion problem when really they have a prospecting problem. The solution is quite simple. You need to use Instagram for social connection and try to use a strategy of moving some of your audience from a social connection like Instagram over to something that is more tailored towards marketing, such as email marketing. Right. So I would say one of the strategies you want to do is try to maybe start building an email list where you have newsletters, you can share content, and we'll touch a little bit more on this. But if you're not too sure if this might be somewhere you should work on, right? You may not have an email list. If you don't have an email list, that's a pretty good chance that this is something you should start working on. Maybe you have an email list, but you don't have a lot of subscribers, or you have an email list, but you're simply not using it. At the end of the day, email marketing remains one of the best tools for online sales conversion. So it's quite important to try to leverage this. Most people are still creating a lot of sales from their email list and creating great engagement with their audience. So let's touch a bit more about, what should your email marketing or your newsletters look like? So now that you've built the collector base from your Instagram and you start to move it over to your email list, you need to provide, what kind of content can you provide? That could be updates on your artistic journey, but should you share? I think one of the most common mistakes that I've seen from artists when seeing their newsletter or their email marketing is it makes it quite hard to contact you beyond replying to the email. And that's not necessarily the way that people will want to go about contacting you, replying to the email. Having things like, having an easy link that you can click at the top, whether that's to follow you on social media, whether it's, to easily send a message or whatever, having your contacts at the top of the email versus buried at the footer like you see on many people will have a significant difference. You can see as much as 4 times more clicks on the information that's at the top of the email versus at the bottom of the email. So if you're an artist, one of the main things that you want is to be contacted. So you should prioritize this at the top of your email versus at the bottom. So very, very common mistakes that I've seen from many artists. Now, what type of content should you share? Things that we've seen from doing hundreds of interviews with collectors that they like to see is behind the scene photos, videos of you explaining the inspiration behind your work, videos sharing personal stories about your work, short blog discussions that shares what has shaped your inspiration recently, co-promotion with other artists, promote local events, or gallery exhibition. Those are all type of content that collectors really like to see, and very easy to create engagement beyond kind of having a very salesy approach to your marketing. So you're trying to build an audience, you're trying to build a community, you want to educate your audience on what's happening in your life as well as your local community. Another important part is formatting. So you want to try to limit the amount of text. You want to use bullet point, use bold and caps to really try to bring attention to your readers. Reading on a screen is not the same as reading on paper, right? If you want your readers to be engaged, you need to ensure that their eyes don't get fatigued as they're reading your message. Here's an example of proper formatting. Here's the 3 things that have inspired my work in 2022. My trip to Ireland, I met up with some old relatives, and the war in Ukraine has certainly shaped the way that I go about my work. This format is very easy to understand the message you're trying to communicate without having to read very long paragraphs that at the end of the day is very tiring on the eyes, right? So writing into an email is very, very different than how you would do it on paper. You want to be short and concise. And like I said, use things like bullet points, bold like I did here, numbers and things like that, which makes it very, very easy to capture a lot of information in a very short amount of time. It's important to be consistent. So you really don't want to bite more than you can chew. You want to start small with 1 newsletter per month and gradually increase the frequency over time. The worst thing that you want is to start aggressively sending 1 post, 1 email per week, and then having to pull back and be at a place where you're only sending 1 per month. it really does not send the right signal to your audience. They start to get worried of why might you not be as engaged as you used to. So by starting small, you can always increase over time. But I've seen a lot of people who starts very aggressively, then they get overwhelmed, and their audience will start to get unengaged with their email. And also, there is a significant impact on the open rate that you'll get from your emails if they're used to having high frequency, and all of a sudden they only get a message here and there. So be very mindful of that. Don't bite more than you can chew. And try to focus on converting your audience from email subscribers, which will lead into repeat collectors and raving fans that will tell their friends about your work. Now, on the marketing at the end of the day is really focused on increasing your reach, right? So there's 3 important ways that you can focus on that some of them might be obvious or not. It starts with your universe, otherwise known as your platform, organic marketing, and social connection. There's free publicity. You can use other people's platform, podcasts, blogs, the press, local newspapers, as well as paid advertisement, whether that's Facebook ads or paid ads, print ads, and so on. 3 easy ways to build social connection. Part of growing your brain as an artist comes from having more social connection. You need to have more people telling their friends about your work, right? So 3 easy ways to do this is to start message other artists that you think share the same target audience as you do on an online platform, such as Imprimo, Instagram, other online marketplace. You need to start creating new social connection. If you have other artists who are also trying to build a market within the same target audience as you, chances are that you can try to collaborate and find ways to leverage each other's audience. You can also collaborate with different type of artists, such as photographers, and that doesn't also mean that you can do it. You don't have to do it on the sales side of things. You can do it on a co-promotion, which is a really cheap way to bring new eyeballs to your work. And you can go and introduce yourself to galleries who represent similar artists. And it might be a bit challenging at time, but this is one of those activities that you just got to do it, and over time it was going to end up working. Another important strategy is to build a relationship with interior designers. There's 30 times more interior designers than there's galleries. Building a relationship with an interior designer can be a great way to sell more artwork. When working with an interior designer, you need to make sure that you share the story behind your work. That makes it significantly easier for an interior designer to share the love and passion that you have behind your work. Art is not just about covering walls, right? The interior designer needs to, sharing your passion is really going to help the interior designer sell your work. Try to become a resource for the interior designer. Position yourself as a creative, flexible, problem-solving resource for these interior designer. Go meet the interior designer where they're at. There's so many great shows and fairs where interior designers are going to be present. If you're going to be headlining those fairs, make sure you're ready. Have your online portfolio ready and be ready to sell yourself as a resource. Don't wait for an interior designer to come and discover you. Be proactive. Start by doing the artwork and start by doing the outreach and try to offer some collaboration. Many of them are looking for those kind of relationships. They do want to sell original work to their clients. It makes a big difference in their practice. They are looking for these type of relationship, but just like you, they are busy doing their own thing. So you need to be proactive. You need to initiate the conversation, and you can extract a ton of value from building relationship with interior designer. There is some in every town and cities across the country. It could be a great resource for you. And then you can focus on leveraging online platform. Many artists are introvert and they're not necessarily comfortable with approaching people that they don't know face to face. Talking about what I was saying about galleries, I've heard it many times from artists. I just don't feel comfortable walking to a gallery and talking to somebody. That's when you can leverage platform like ours, like whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Facebook, whether that's Instagram, and just try to kind of have an approach where you can start building connection, whether it's following, liking, or simply kind of sending them messages. It may work at time, it may not work at time, but at the end of the day, if you're consistent on your approach, you will start creating some connection, and which eventually will lead into relationships that drives opportunity for your work. And it will not be as uncomfortable as it might be to be doing the same thing face to face. Now let's talk about sales. Let's be real. Most artists are not naturally born salespeople, right? So many artists believe that because they're not salespeople, that the only alternative that they have is to have someone else, like galleries or dealers, do that work for them. But there's other ways. The truth is that galleries and dealers are doing a pretty good job at taking care of the artists that they represent and alleviating some of these challenges that are associated with sales. But having gallery or dealer representation is far from being as easy as it looks. If you haven't been able to get gallery representation, are you out of option? Definitely not. Today we're going to talk about these strategies that you can use for your sales. So before we dive into how to increase sales for your work, let's dive into a few common myths. Artists believe that the problem is that they don't have a big enough audience. The reality is the better you are at promoting, the less people you need to generate traction, right? Artists believe that it's easier to make high ticket sales in person than it is on the internet. But as we can see from this artist here, Julie Meredu, who sold a Canva for over $6.5 million on artsy.net, you can generate high ticket sales online as well. Artists believe that you need to sell at a low price, when in reality, if you sell your art at a higher price, you'll be able to spend more time in the studio creating, which is at the end of the day what you would rather do than spend your time selling. Otherwise, you'd be in sales. And some of the solution is to really focus on what's important and eliminate what doesn't. When it comes time to selling, it's so easy to get spread too thin and just focus on the wrong things, right? You got to try a lot of things, but you also got to be able to realize that some things simply don't work, and you shouldn't spend time on things that don't work, right? You should focus on producing higher profit artwork. That's a common mistake that I've noticed. Creating strong engagement with your audience. You don't need an enormous audience. You simply need to have an audience that's engaged. You don't need 100,000 followers. You could easily have 1,000 followers or 500 followers and have a great relationship with the vast majority of them, which will drive engagement and generate sales. You can leverage online marketplace. It allows you to reach broader audience, but keep in mind the shipping costs, because it certainly can dive into your profit. So you may want to focus on selling bigger pieces locally and focus on selling prints abroad. And then when it comes to pricing, that's also often an important discussion. I think there's some basic things to consider here. At the end of the day, successful artists, they learn to price for profit at premium prices. One of the main reasons that many artists are having a hard time making a living from their work is because they spend too much time on low profit art. Don't be afraid to charge more. Artists who have this problem think that they don't have enough traffic, they don't have enough customers, but really is that you're trying to sell a lot of cheap thing at a volume. The truth is, high-end collectors might think that there's something wrong if your artwork is underpriced, right? So that's something to consider. So here's a few myths that we'll go over. So artists believe that it's easier to sell cheap. Price isn't always a deciding factor when it comes to conversion rates for high-end art sale. Here's an example. Would you buy a Rolex if it was $50, right? Where else we might be price sensitive. Would you hire the cheapest babysitter or the cheapest vet? Right? At the end of the day, art collectors are luxury buyer, and they want to be reassured. They want this to be reassuringly expensive, right? So that's something to remember. So what? We get the question often, but what happened if I start charging more and it starts making it hard to make sales? The solution is simple. You want to have multiple pricing options, but all that have high profit. So sell low price point item that you can distribute online and attract new customers. That's where selling prints might be a great way. You're trying to build an audience, and if you start to have your average price point at $5,000 or $10,000, that might be too steep for somebody who's just discovering you and don't know who you are. But if they're able to enter you and start buying some of your piece in a lower cost print, right, they might be able to get familiar with your work, and then over time be able to move over a higher price item. Choose larger canvas that can be delivered locally, and start building relationship with the buyer as much as possible, right? So that's just what I've heard from many people who are selling online. They're taking the steps to not ship it and try to really focus on local market. When talking to collectors, they are very interested in buying from local artists. Depending if you're here in Canada, if you're in Ontario, or if you're in BC, or you're in Newfoundland, St. John, Newfoundland, the likelihood of you buying artwork from St. John, from Newfoundland, if you're from St. John, is much greater than buying it from Surrey, BC. So try to focus on local market. It's been proven to be quite successful for a lot of artists. And then you can look in programs such as, so one of our partners, Partial Gallery, to have this rent program, which offers, a low entry cost point for new customers, and they have a 75% conversion rate. So people who rent the artwork, 75% of them tends to end up buying it. So which allows you to convert from a small sale into a larger price item without increasing at all your expenses. You end up renting it, you collect a fee, and all of a sudden the buyer keeps it, and then you didn't encounter any other expense, and you end up with a higher ticket sale. And then at the end of the day, most artists are entrepreneurs, whether they like it or not, right? You have a lot of things to manage. It's not just about making work. You got to really take the time to get organized. Very simple. What gets scheduled, get done, right? You need to be organized, and you need to prioritize the things that matters, right? In addition to your creation time, you need to find time to schedule for marketing. We touched on a lot of different things that you have to do. You have to spend time focusing on archiving your work in art provenance, updating your web presence. You have to focus on finance management, networking, researching, and then mentor-mentee relationships. That comes down to being a lot. It's important to have a schedule. It's important to block time to have these activities. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a position where these things are going to pile up, and then you get to a place where you have no choice but to do it. I hear it. I've done hundreds and hundreds of one-on-ones with artists, and I hear it all the time. I don't have any time to spend in my studio. I have to do all these different administrative tasks. I got this, I got that. And at the end of the day, what I'm really hearing is I don't have a plan. I don't have a schedule. I don't have dedicated time in my schedule to do these tasks that in reality, I can't go around it. I have to do these things. And, taking the time to schedule it will significantly reduce the stress that you encounter when you have to do this. It will make the process much simpler, whether you're dedicating 30 minutes every day to be chipping at each of these different items, or if you block a 30-minute period, an entire day a week where you're focusing on all these things. It's important to schedule these things and to really focus on this. This will allow you to have so much more time in your studio and doing what you actually like, which is spending some time creating. And a few other tips that we have that I can have for you is creating a content library, like having a marketing plan as an artist with some of these platforms, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or so on. That's a lot of content. You have to post every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And if you wait on the day of to start creating that content, you're going to be overwhelmed. That's guaranteed. Some of the tricks that we have for you is start building content. The best content that we've seen on our platform that the users are engaging with are the behind the scene photos. If you're making work, whether you're taking photos of that as you're going through the progression, showing the material that you're using, showing the process, this is really what your audience wants to see. We've heard many times, we tend to think that they want to see the final product, but at the end of the day, if you ask anyone who's looking at art, the first question they have is, I wonder how they went about this. Show them how you went about your process is going to drive significantly more engagement, and it's so much easier to build a large library of content. You can go, and as you do your different artwork, you start building that content, which can then be scheduled. You have some pre-made caption, and then you can choose to use a tool like a scheduler for social media, which will help you to be consistent. If you go and you say, I'm going to spend a day, I'm going to take different images as I go and I do my different artwork production, or taking different images of my inspiration or so on. And you can easily build a library of 100 different images that you have fairly quickly if you're organized. And then you come and spend some time on some different caption. It doesn't have to be long, right? It could just be a sentence or two. And then you build it into these schedulers, which will allow you to be consistent. It will allow you to have something going out every single day, which when you look on different social media channels, it's very important to be consistent. If you start posting every day and then you wait and then a month goes by and then you start posting once a week, you will be very penalized by their algorithm, right? So you want to make sure you're consistent, but in reality is life is not that consistent. So, if you wait in the day of and you say, oh, every day I'm going to work on this, life is going to get in the way. And then you're going to find yourself in a position where you simply don't have enough time to get this done. So by prepping this in advance, you can automate a lot of this content, is going to be scheduled and is going to post. And then you can really spend the time, if you have extra time, to go and supplement that automated content with more personalized content, whether that's on your stories, whether that's on your posts or so on. But being consistent is key. Whether we're talking about your marketing, whether we're talking about your networking, the organization, making connections with galleries, interior designers, and so on. Most things don't work at first. You need to take some time, you need to have a plan, and you need to work the plan. So that puts an end to my presentation today. I want to open up the question. I'm sure a lot of you have questions. So I'm going to stop sharing here and I will open up for questions. So just give me 2 seconds to open up the chat. If you have any questions, you can. Yeah, so there's some great question here. So one of the first question here is, I see a lot of bots and scam and things like that on my Instagram, and I would say I've heard that from everybody, and it is very, very, very challenging. Us as a platform at Imprimo, one of the things that we do is we require every single person to verify their ID. Now, some people might find it kind of annoying at first, but the reality is that's how we prevent scammers from entering our platform. Everybody's on Imprimo is who they pretend to be. They have to verify their ID, and we've built a lot of mechanism in place to take care of that problem up front. Because if you've been on Instagram, you may have someone who copied your profile, you may have someone who's trying to scam you, and the notice and takedown process is extremely painful. And then when it comes time to proving that you are who you pretend to be, that process is quite challenging. So we take care of that up front at Imprimo so that you don't have to deal with any of this on your platform. And we try to do our best to really make sure that we're monitoring the platform. When it comes to Instagram, fortunately, there's no miracle fix for that. You just got to be very cautious. I would say what is very, very common is you'll see some people trying to take advantage of artists by saying, I want to make an NFT out of your work. Personally, I'm very bullish on NFTs. I think they're great, but I think that's something you should initiate yourself. I don't think someone should come to you and say NFTs. This is a decision that you should make yourself. And if you don't know how it works, you should approach somebody who is experienced, that you trust, and that you can have a conversation with, and then you can make a decision whether that type of method is good for you and it makes sense for your practice, and understand all the implication that might come with such a thing. My advice is, if you're getting a message from someone randomly who wants to buy NFTs on Instagram, don't engage. I've seen so many people who have voiced that they've had challenges with this. If someone is randomly messaging you saying that they're going to put your work abroad in a gallery and they want to collect some funds, I understand. As a creator, it's exciting to know that someone's interested in your work, and it's very exciting that you want to have some help. But the reality is, not very many gallery have time to start chasing people on Instagram. The matter of fact, they're being overwhelmed with the requests they're getting from artists. So the likelihood of something like that being a scam is pretty high. So be cautious out there. Instagram and other platforms can be great, but they do not necessarily have some great mechanism to prevent bots or prevent scammers from there. So be very cautious out there. At our end, we're trying to do the best we can so that you don't have that kind of experience on Imprimo. And I hope that that's what you're experiencing out here. Few questions on the recording. Yes, it will be recorded, and we'll share it with everybody who has registered. So you do not have to worry about that. So here, what is the role of Imprimo in all this process? That's a great question. Imprimo is not a marketplace. So we don't sell. Our platform is made to help you build your persistent online presence, build your profile as an artist, showcase your career journey through your CV and the artwork timeline, helps document your work. We have tools built in, so that really helps managing your work very easily. You can build your CV very quickly, and then you can create subsets of your CV, a 2-page, 3-page, 4-page, 5-page, 10-page in just a few clicks. We have automated certificate of creations that helps kind of make on-domain documentation for your work. We have automatically generated QR code, which really helps you create more engagement during physical exhibition. At the end of the day, we built Imprimo to help you document your work in a way that is safe and where you can showcase your entire career in a very engaging way. So where it's a way to really focus on building your online presence and managing your work effectively. Then I have a question here on what is your thought on LinkedIn as a platform for visual artists? Well, I'm not an artist, I'm an entrepreneur, and obviously I like LinkedIn quite a bit. So, but I would say that's not the feedback I'm getting out there from artists. And the feedback I'm getting is LinkedIn is made for jobs, job title, and as an artist, you have CVs and exhibition and publication, and it's really difficult to showcase the magnitude of some of these events with a short line of text. And that's why when we built Imprimo, we adapt the CV so you can have videos, images, documents that really kind of helps drive more engagement with your career, where we saw a shortfall in LinkedIn. There's a lot of galleries on LinkedIn. I have not seen them engage with artists the way I was expecting them to. So again, personally, I really like it. So it's really hard for me to say it's not a great platform. But I simply haven't seen the artists who are seeing that as their number one platform. I just think the format is just not appropriate for creators as appropriate it is for business people. But again, the verdict's still out on that one. I know there's artists out there who is having success on Imprimo. I know some artists who are having success on LinkedIn. I know them personally, but the mass message so far is that is simply not working for them. Have you heard about link pop, link in bio for sales, like Shopify for social media sales? I haven't. Again, not an artist, so maybe some people, certainly a lot of people out there having a lot of luck with Shopify. That really comes down to your ability to manage an online store. There's a lot of platforms that are very easy. Like I said, we have a partner, Partial Galleries, that makes it ultra easy for you to sell your work online. If you're not too adept with tools like Shopify, I know a lot of artists are having a lot of luck with Shopify. It really comes down to what you like best, and kind of it comes down also to your skill set with tech, right? If you're really good, then you're probably going to have a lot of luck with Shopify. And if you're not, then you're probably best to look at someone who has a very simple platform like Partial, which makes it very easy. And I have my friend Lenz here. Hey JD, just wanted to add, often interior designers are not choosing art for their project in larger market like Toronto, but has been fruitful to contact art advisor, art consultant, curators, and selected and often being contacted these professional by designers. That's a great advice. I think for some people who may not be in the major centers, that might be a bit different, right? I know I'm from New Brunswick here, where there may or may not be as much opportunities, and if you're buying work from Toronto, the shipping is very serious and things like that. So maybe for smaller centers, the interior designers, but at the end of the day, Lynn's got some great advice here. Art advisor, art consultant, creators can be a great mediator, a good intermediary between you and interior designers who can really start creating some of these relationships. And we have some that we work with. So if ever you are looking to meet with an art advisor or consultant, you can send us a message, info@imprimo.ca, and we would be very pleased to introduce you. Okay, I think I might be at the end of the questions here. Any other questions that you guys have for me on promotion, marketing, any ways to generate more opportunities for your work online? Someone would rather come and ask the questions, you can always just unmute or raise the hand with the little function here. Give you guys a couple more minutes. Is it worth to pay for SEOs? That's a great question. I would say there is a lot of SEO gurus out there. And I would say there's certainly, the answer is certainly not no, because for the right person, yes, it can help. I think you need to be realistic with your expectations, right? If you think that you can go and you just started a website and you don't have a lot of traction online at all, and you're going to pay somebody, and then all of a sudden you'll have thousands of people messaging you, you're going to be disappointed. However, if you have a website that you had for a long time and you know that you're getting traction, but it might be outdated and it's time to be refreshed and want to make sure that it's easier for you to get discovered through search engine, then I would say yes, right? It really depends on, are you going to generate significantly more sale from SEOs? I would say probably not. I think you're going to generate a lot more sales from taking care of your current buyers, right? Making them very happy, connecting with them, building relationships, and getting introductions to their friends and family. That is most likely the best way. As someone who's been in sales for a very long time, I don't think inbound sales is a very good way to make a practice. You need to be proactive, and it really comes down to building a community and building relationships, talking about your work, and having, in my opinion, things like low cost entry point for new customers, right? Some people are looking at your work and they're just not ready to spend a lot of money, but they like what you do. So if you give them a low cost, high profit, but low cost option, such as prints, which could be an easy way for customers to come in and to get used to your art, if they buy your prints 2-3 times, the likelihood of them coming and buying a canvas for thousands of dollars is significantly more than if they never bought anything from you. From someone, again, that's been in sales for a long time. The biggest sales comes from repeated customer. So the best thing you can do is find a way to create repeated customer, and that is by finding ways to have, by my opinion, low cost options to initiate new buyers in there. I've used SEOs and had contacts from all over the world, some sales, especially in the US, students inquiries too. That's amazing. That's amazing. There's definitely some success stories out there. So there's no question about that. So again, that's what I said. I certainly think that the answer is not no. I think it really comes down to your expectations and where you are in your career. If you have a great portfolio, lots of experience, and have sold lots of great work, and that the issue is that your website is designed in a way that you're not going to get any tractions because the search engine optimization is the weakness, then of course you're going to have a great benefit from that. But if you have a brand new website and you're a brand new artist, it's not the searchability that's going to be the issue, right? Is really the fact that they don't know who you are. And even they can find you, they still won't know who you are. They're going to want, there is a trust aspect that is related to art where they're going to want to see some social proof. They're going to want to see that you had exhibitions. They want to see that you had sales. That's why I said it's important to find things somewhere that you can showcase past sales as well as upcoming what you have sold. What we built in Imprimo, you have the ability to put in the artwork timeline the registered sales, so that someone can go and see this artist has 100 pieces of work. She sold 75 and have 25 for sale. On a lot of marketplace, once it's sold, the image disappear. So now you're left with only what's for sale, and no real ability to know did this person ever sold anything or did not. Some of them will keep the sales for a period of time, and then it's going to disappear. Some of them keep it for a long time, right? But at the end of the day, being able to show that you had past sales, you had past exhibitions, you had publications, you won an award is significantly going to improve the trust factors. And then again, if you have all these things, then things like SEOs can certainly make a difference. How does prospective client find you on the web when you are in Imprimo? The same way they find you otherwise, right? I guess, they can search for different keywords and get there. I think what the reality is on a platform like Imprimo, where you see some benefit is what I would call cross-pollination, where my friend is an artist and I'm going on Imprimo to see him. And then I see an artwork and I'm like, that's quite interesting. I wonder who's making this. And then I start to explore new artists where if you look at someone's website, I go on their website, I either purchase or I don't, and then my next function is pressing X. Therefore, if I want to see another artist, you need to find a way to drive the traffic over here, right? And in the idea of having a social platform like Imprimo, it allows art lovers to discover all kinds of new art. At the end of the day, discovering artwork, you're not going to purchase art 100% of the time you see it, right? Like there's only so many walls in your house, right? So at the end of the day, the more that you're able to have a discovery process where someone can come and get familiar with who you are as an artist, familiar with your work, the likelihood of them purchasing the art is much greater. And that's why having a centralized network like Imprimo allows the art lovers to come and have something to do and something to look at beyond what you're doing as an artist. How many pieces a year can you really create? How often is someone going to go to your website? If you're not pushing out 3 pieces a month, why would you expect them to go and to watch your profile every week? If you're only updating your website twice a year, they're not going to return to your websites 3 times a month. There's just nothing more to see than what they saw last time. That's where a platform like Imprimo can really be beneficial, and we're already seeing some of that cross-pollination happening. Yeah. So I got Lynn's here that says that agreeing with me on the credibility, you can get sites with tons of hit but not sales. Sites like Partials are credible. People are willing to spend money there. Lynn's has had tons of success there. Personally, I really like these guys. They're really amazing. I think the customer service aspect of it is really spot on. And I think they're doing a great job of taking care of their artists. Obviously, they're my partners, so I'm bullish on it. But I think, for you guys, if you want to explore Partial Gallery, they got a lot to offer. Great offer for many artists. We're not a marketplace, so I often refer people who wants to sell their work over there. So I have a question here. What are low-cost auction? Can you explain on that? To be really honest, I'm not an artist, so I don't know all the options that you have. I know things for sure that doing a print is a lot more cost effective than doing canvas. And you gotta, when you say about low cost, is you want to keep the price point low, but you want to keep the profit high. So you may have someone might say, well, I'm creating a piece and it's this big and I can make it cheap, but it's like, does it really take that much less time to making a big one? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I know a lot of artists who have smaller piece and they're actually able to make them fairly fast and they're not as expensive, and that works for them. Right? I know there's one of the artists that we have on our platform. She's had a ton of success with mini piece, right? And that's her way of doing this. Now, that might not be for everybody, depending on your style, right? Making a small piece, maybe just as time consuming as making a big piece. All of a sudden, you have a piece that can only sell for so much, and you spend a lot of time, so it's a low profit piece. So again, there's a lot of different options that you can look at. Again, things like we have hard advisors that we can introduce you to that they might be better placed than me to explain all the different avenues, but it really comes down to one thing: is high profit, low cost. If it's low cost and low profit, that's not a good idea. As an artist, you only have so many hours. You can only produce so many pieces in a year. So if you can say, okay, I can do 1 canvas a month, 2 canvas a month, if you cut on your price, then you're really hurting your profit. You need to be able to find ways that you can increase your production so that you can generate more profit. And often that will come from finding things like I said, print, or in her case, she has mini piece, which seems to be working pretty good for her. I have avoided prints to create exclusivity. If you have my work as an original, do you think offering prints devalues the original work as an artist? I'm more worried about decreasing the value. I guess there's many ways to see this, So if someone is, maybe you don't have to have the same work. Someone may have, work as an original. You don't go and create that one as a print, but you may have some work that you are willing to have as a print. And at the end of the day, I think many people feels like you, and they do not want to explore using things like prints because they want to focus on the original work. But then you're back to your production issue of you can only create so many pieces a year, and then you're really down to one option is selling at a high price. And most artists I've talked to are finding that very hard. right? So if you say, well, Prince is not something I want to explore, then maybe having mini piece like that artist that we have is an avenue that you can explore. But it really comes down to what can you do to increase the amount of options that you have at different price tiers so that you can introduce new buyers to your work without having to compromise on profit. How can you maximize Instagram as a connection tool? Engage with people, like their images, comments. I follow so many artists and they have so many followers and nobody's commenting on their images. You know what I mean? Like, this is the best thing. If you're on Instagram, there's nothing better than someone engaging with your content. It's amazing. It's instant gratification. You know, if you want people to engage with yours, engage with theirs. Start liking and commenting on people. Start messaging them. If you like something, tell them, you know? And if you start doing that, people are going to start doing it back. And it's really going to start creating some momentum. You know, just like Twitter, I don't remember exactly the stats, but it's like 90% of people don't write on Twitter. They just watch. And then they wonder why they don't have any followers, right? You need to engage if you want to receive engagement back. It's a give and take. The more you give, the more you get. So really, as a connection is just like I said previously, if you sit at home and you wait for someone to come and find you, it might take a while. If you're out there and you're trying to talk to as many people as possible, you're going to realize that some people are going to come out and start having conversations with you. You're like, oh my God, I never thought I would have talked to this person. But it's really about being proactive. It's about engaging with other people's content. It's about asking for collaboration. You might find somebody who has similar audience than you. You guys are sharing the same challenges. Why not try to find ways to collaborate together? If you say, well, we don't have the same styles, there's so many photographers out there who would love to collaborate with you and vice versa. Same thing with videographer. So a lot of artists who have installation, there's a musician, there's so many people that you can collaborate with to really start creating so you can really start creating some collaboration and creating more work. Yeah, so there's a comment here, not very positive. What if you think that the work is not good? Well, I think it's self-explanatory, right? If you don't have anything positive to say, you should probably refrain from it. It's definitely not going to help your social connection. Any other comments or questions that can help you guys with? I'm gonna give you guys a couple more minutes. So I'll give you a couple minutes and I got a bunch. Can partial gallery represent UK artists? We work with UK artists online. Happy to give you some introductions if you want. Grace does a pretty good job out there. Can partial deal with the UK? Yes, partial focus very much on local markets. They do not have a direct shipping in there. Can you sell from partial? Yep. Will they take you to the client? Most likely. Assuming that your work, you know, they do have to vet the artists, but we work with UK artists online. They do have a great traction in the UK. So if you're interested in meeting with Grace, I'd love to make you an introduction. Can I put my Imprimo link on my website? Absolutely, and you should put your website link on Imprimo so that the two connects to each other, right? So you know, if you go on Imprimo under I think it's social medias, you can put your website there, and many artists have their Imprimo website link and their Imprimo website link on their website. Their Imprimo link on their website, sorry. And to answer some of the questions on discoverability with Imprimo, the best way to have your profile found on Imprimo is to add your Imprimo link as many places as you can, on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your website. The more that your Imprimo link appears, the more it is going to be searchable on pages like Google. So that's one of the things that you can do. What are your thoughts on entering photo contests as a pro? That's a great question. So I think at the end of the day, depends on what your audience is, what your audience is. I think that you're trying to get as many eyeballs as possible. And you never know who's going to be there, who's going to judge, who's going to see this. Personally, I think there's there's a lot of like trying to kind of shoot the light out at everything you do. But at the end of the day, having an opportunity, you don't know who's going to see this. And maybe you meet somebody through a contest and maybe you don't win. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe you think, this contest is not for me. But maybe the person who's sitting there who sees your image really likes it, and they turn around, they start buying a lot of them, and there's a lot of different opportunities. Like for me, I was someone who's been in entrepreneurs and in sales my whole life, I can say I certainly talked to a lot of people and did a lot of things that I didn't know if it was going to bring any value, and I've been pleasantly surprised many times by seeing things I thought I was wasting my time on has dramatically changed my life. So I would say I'm one of those guys that will say, why not? What do you really have to lose? Some people will say it affects my brain. You have to be really talented for someone to come and say, you're too good to be part of something. That's my opinion. And I think it really significantly discount the fact that you don't know who's there. You don't know who their family is, right? You could be someone at a contest whose brother is a billionaire, right? And then you could be missing that opportunity from not doing this. So I would say, as an artist, the more eyeballs, the better, right? There's very little to be lost from having there, and some people will feel different. I can understand that. But for me, I would put myself out there as many times as I can. It's so difficult to get some eyeballs on your work. I would not limit anything. I would try everything and anything and everything that my schedule permits. Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm actually happy you said that. So the question here is on, other than the process specs, the inspiration, are collectors buyer interested in the artist's non-creating activities, hobbies, and sports interests? Big time. The collectors want to know who you are as a person, right? The obvious is they want to know how you go about your work, but why are you making this work? We have one of the artists, Patty, who's on our platform. He's from Ireland, and a lot of his work is related to territories and things like this. Like, if you don't know that, then you're really missing a big part of his inspiration. I can see Randa here, who's from Syria, right? Randa's story is absolutely unbelievable, right? If you know her story, you can appreciate her work at least 100 times more. If you don't know her story, her work is great. When you see her story, it's mind blowing, right? So I would say it's really, really important to share that. We hear it time and time again. And I'll tell you guys exactly what we hear. The favorite part that collectors have is to share the stories of the artists and share the story of the work with their friends, their family, and their co-collectors. That story is nowhere to be found other than from the artist that tells it at time of sales. And the second that the piece leaves the primary market and it goes into the secondary market where you sell an artwork to somebody else, it's gone forever. We've built this section on Imprimo called the creation story to try to address that, to try to help artists share their inspiration, who they are, what their piece meant to them, why they went about this. And a lot of this is personal stories. We have another artist, Nancy Cole. She's using all kind of embroidery to create her work, and then the photographies are some photographies that she's been collecting for a long time. I met an artist this weekend that I think she said her uncle has taken some photos in the 40s, and she's mixing these photos together. I mean, it's pretty cool when you know the background of where these images have been taking and how old they are, and the fact that he's traveled the world and he's done all these things, which I would say is probably not captured the vast majority of his time from artists. So taking the time, there's obviously some things that are probably not appropriate as far as your personal life, but in vast majority, I would say most artists could do a lot more about sharing about their personal life. Like, it is very important. If you look at any famous artist, we all wonder, what was their life, right? And as an artist, why not share that? That's the question. If you think about famous artists, Leonardo or Michelangelo or so on, like, what was their life? That's the question we ask ourselves. So, safe to say people want to know. Yeah, so does it make sense to share these non-creative stories on an artist's website and social platform? I think so. I'll give you an example. Lens, who's here, I think she was here anyway. She posts on her social media often that she has bunnies. I mean, I love animals. I engage with her content because of it. I love her work too, but you know what I mean? Like there's things like that goes about driving interest. Like you're human beings at the end of the day. Like people want to connect with human beings. They want to know who you are and they want to build a relationship with you. They just don't want to build a relationship with the piece of work you're making. They want to build a relationship with the person that's making it, which is a real human being, right? Who has real life experience like all of us. Like they're not robots. And I think it's important. I think at the end of the day, the collectors want to know who you are as an artist, true and true. Any other questions? All right. Well, I thank you all for coming. That video is going to be recorded and put on YouTube, and we'll email it all to you guys. We have a couple exciting events that is coming up in June. We have one that is how to tell your story as an artist, and how to get more eyes on your work. So stay tuned for this. So watch your email. We'll be emailing you the invitations over the coming weeks, and I wish you all a great evening.